All right, can everyone see me? How's everyone doing? I think I'm live. My software says I am live, but I'm just trying to pull it up right now on my Facebook so I can make sure. Yeah. So please, as I'm doing this, let me all know. Okay, good, I'm live. Let me all know in the comments how you're feeling. How are you handling this? Mercury retrograde has officially started. What was I thinking doing Mercury retrograde, a webinar, or not even a webinar, a Facebook live video right now, but especially with Venus square Pluto going on. But I figured I would just do it and we'll all be in this together. So please let me know how you're doing down below in the comments. If you're handling it okay, what's going on there. Hello. Hey, Alyssa. Oh, good. You can see and hear me. Perfect. Thank you, Emily. Awesome. I might just wait for a few more people to get on. Also, please, there is, if you saw in my description box for this video, a free downloadable PDF. If you want to do that, you don't need to download it, although you can download it and print it out if you want, but I think you should just be able to click on it, pull it up on your screen, and it will have there the most important days that I'm going to be talking about for the next hour and a half. It's probably how long that this will last. Also has some discussion questions for self-reflection. I really like those, as well as just like a little thing for each of the signs. So feel free to take a look at that. There. Hi, Arlette. Hi, Diana. Yeah, I agree. I think today has been more of an emotional day than I was expecting, especially with the moon in Gemini, but I think it's definitely the Venus in a square with Pluto doing it. Hi, Lisa. Awesome. Yay. Good. I'm glad you found it, Erin. Hi, Peter. Thanks for all your comments. I'm here, as you can tell, behind my white brick wall today. I'm at home. So I thought I would do it here. I'm still like, the dream is still to have my own office space, but I'm like, I just got to grind it out. Saturn and Capricorns, like you just got to make it work with what you have. Hi, Lori. Yes, I agree. A little emotional. For sure. Awesome. Good. Do y'all have any questions or anything? Otherwise, I'll jump right in. We got a few of y'all on now. Let me get, before I started this video, I was having problems with my phone. It was frozen. So I was like, great, it's already starting. Perfect. Yeah, I can talk about Mercury retrograde a little bit. Emily, awesome. I also want to remind you all before we get started too, I don't know if you'll have my my astrological planner that I created. Isn't this cool? It's right here. This is it in person. But I did do a special worksheet, of course, for this Mercury retrograde with some questions too. So if you have the planner, feel free to, to follow along with that, to answer the questions there. Or if you want to get the planner, there's also a link to download the PDF or to actually buy the real version. This is the real version, but you can get the PDF too. So either is fine. All right. Okay, well, I guess we'll go ahead and get started now that I've got quite a few of you on. The way I like to do my webinars, or just the way I like to do my videos, is just to give you a little bit of a message with just me speaking, just so you know the way that I'm thinking about it. Then I like to bring up just some images on the screen to show you some imagery and some metaphors, really. I like to think of them for what's going on in the astrology, because I feel like, to me, astrology is a language of symbols and a language of images. And to me, that's how it makes it easy for me to learn. And hopefully it'll help you all to learn too, to give you different perspectives and ways of thinking of things. So that's why I bring the images up, not to just like be silly, but to hopefully spark something in your imagination that can connect you with something better than my words can. So I'll do that. Then I'll bring up some of the charts. We'll talk about some of the most important days of this retrograde, what's going on there for each of those days, and then I'll go through the signs and answer some questions. All right, so we'll do that. Now, just to give you a little bit of what I think this Mercury retrograde to me is really all about, I think, especially, let me just back up a little bit with what's going on, because we've had so many planets in Sagittarius for the last 2.5 years. We had Saturn there, we had Mars there, bringing up a time of like tons of new things, of experimentation, of travel, of doing things we haven't done before, of trying to expand our life, even if it was a little bit difficult. And I think what's been really notable is that especially, and you all who follow my videos know that in the past week or two, Mars and Saturn have now come out of maybe I should bring up the charts, but have now come out of, let me pull it up for you, have now come out of Sagittarius. We've got a bunch of planets in Capricorn. Let me get it for you. Here we go. Yeah, I was like, it'll just be easier if I have the chart in front of me. Perfect. So we had Saturn and Mars, which were right here in Sagittarius for the longest time, what felt like forever. They both came out, and now they're in Capricorn, which I think is a good thing for both of these planets. Saturn and Mars both love Capricorn. Saturn's home here. Mars is an exaltation. And at the same time that we had these planets come out of Sagittarius into the sign they like, we also had a bunch of planets leave Pisces and move into Aries. And Aries, of course, is the first sign of the zodiac, a rebirth of sorts. And I really like it because I think there's definitely a huge chance for us to start to do things, to act, to make things happen in a really, really big way that perhaps we weren't previously, and to take a lot of the things that were going on and to build them into something. All right, but this Aries transit that we're having now that things have changed, isn't like a normal Aries transit. Because normally I would say when you'd have a bunch of planets in Aries, it's like go time. It's like time to build, time to do, time to make things happen in a big way, to feel more free, to start all over. And I think we have that, but we have a lot of pressure coming in on these Aries planets happening for the next month, really. So right as we get this big push from like God or the universe to start do some things, all of a sudden we get hit in a lot of different directions. Not only is that because Mercury is going retrograde in Aries, but we also have all of these planets that are going to be squaring Capricorn too, really requiring a lot more dedication from us, a lot more focus than we have previously to make sure everything goes in the right direction. So the way that I see this, I'll pull up some pictures now, as I mentioned that I would talk about. Let me stop this share another thing. Oh, I think this is where they all are. Perfect. So the way that I see Aries season, everything has now moved into Aries for the most part, at least all the fast moving planets. And this is where we are. Aries, to me, the first sign of the zodiac, it's like planting a seed or starting from the beginning. Based on something new that we're doing, we're now starting all over from the beginning to build on this new thing that we've been working out for 2.5 years, to start to stick with it, to take it into new chapters and to move forward. And this is us, where we are right now. Okay, and normally when you think of a seed growing, you think of it growing in stages. You know, okay, well, we've got the seed happening, and then like it has to grow to be like a little baby tree, and then it gets bigger, and then it gets like thicker, and the roots go deeper. But with the squares to Capricorn coming in, instead of us just growing the natural way, we've got a lot of pressure saying, okay, what is the finished product going to look like? What's the actual tree going to be like in the end? Like, you can't just enjoy childhood being a baby seed. You have to think as well about what the seed is going to grow into in the future, and to build it. And so I think that's what's making this Aries transit a little bit hard, is it's not just about doing things, starting over anew, fresh. It's a lot of responsibility of saying, okay, well, now that I'm doing this, now that I'm being this new person, where is the end result? What is the big tree that I'm eventually going to grow into? What is the adult version? If you want to think of Capricorn as being more of the adult phase of life, what is the more adult version, more elderly version, especially as we move towards Pisces, of this thing that we're creating, that we're really having to focus on and to figure out, okay, which is going to make this a little bit difficult, not just about doing things in Aries this time around, but at making sure we're doing things in the right ways that can point us in the right direction, so that we ultimately become the person that we want, and so that we're making decisions that are good for us and not bad for us, okay? So that's what I see going on there. I think this Mercury retrograde, as we're starting to move forward, making some big decisions here to put our life in the right place so that we can do things in the right way. We've got Mercury retrograde saying, okay, who exactly are you? What is important to you? In what way can you do things so that you can become this big tree, become this adult, mature version of your project, of your little baby life right now? It's really trying to help us figure out in what way we need to do things so that we can move forward, and in what things really, really resonate with us inside so that we can ultimately create what it is that we're hoping to create. I also like to think of here, Aries as well as like stick figures in a way. I said this in one of my last webinars. Aries is great to start things, but it's not always like great when it comes to like putting a whole package together and making sure it looks nice. And so I feel like now we're in the stick figure phase here. We're like little stick figures trying to, you know, do things coming in. And I think Mercury retrograde is going to help us, I like to think, with this Disney sketch, become more improved sketches. We're not just drawing stick figures anymore, but we are actually, you know, trying to be a more advanced or a more fleshed out version of ourselves in some way. And so that's why this Aries transit is a little unusual going on, because it's not just about doing things, it's doing things that really can point your life in the right direction and trying to get a better idea of who it is that you are. Okay, so that's what I see happening there. Okay, I think this is interesting too, because we've got Mercury in Aries, and Mercury is the natural ruler of both Gemini and Virgo. Let me bring up the chart because I think it might help you if I have that. And I think that brings up two interesting points just to talk about, especially with Virgo. I want to mention that because we have Virgo quincunxes Aries naturally coming in with where it is. And a quincunx is the sign that's on the other side of the opposition. So Libra opposes Aries. So the signs that are going to quincunx Aries are going to be Scorpio, which is right next to Libra, and Virgo as well, which is right next to Libra since it opposes Aries. So we've got Mercury, the natural ruler of Virgo, which quincunxes Aries in that sign. Okay, and the reason why Virgo and Aries quincunx is because Aries, as I was mentioning before, is all about the seed and the stick figure. Who cares, like, what's happening? Let's just do something. Like, let's just get it out there. Like, we've had a whole bunch of baggage from the past. Like, it's a free-for-all. Let's move on, you know? And we've got Virgo, in addition to Capricorn, saying, no, no, no. You have to do things right. Like, if you're going to do anything, you need to make sure that you're doing everything with the most, like, the best way you can do it. It has to be perfect. It has to be perfect with Virgo. You know, and that's where Virgo and Aries fight, is where Aries says, if I have to be perfect, I'm never going to do anything. I'm never going to get anything done that I need to get done. And Virgo says, well, if you're gonna do things the way you are, you might as well not even start, because they're gonna suck anyways. And so it's a matter of these two signs, I say, in ways of thinking, with Mercury being there having to compromise. A lot of times readjustments come in with the quincunx, where Aries has to say, okay, fine, like, I'll do things a little bit better than what I was planning on doing them, Virgo, you know, Mercury, you know, just because that's what you want, like, fine. And Mercury has to say, okay, maybe I'll sacrifice a little bit on some of the perfectionism so that you can actually start to do things to make things happen. And I think that's what we're trying to figure out here, especially with this Mercury retrograde, is how we can do things, how we can be who we are at the very beginning stages, you know, and move forward, but how we can do it slightly better and with slightly more responsibility and understanding than we have previously, to make sure that we're not just having a free-for-all doing whatever. Because what can come in with Aries is that we have so much passion, so much excitement, that we forget about whether or not it's in our best interest, and we do things impulsively. And I think Virgo, the Mercury coming in here, the Virgo Mercury is saying, okay, like, I want you to do things, I want you to grow, you're a little seed, I want you to grow here, but you need to make sure that you're thinking long-term, and that things are like, not like, you're not just doing whatever just to do them, but that they have purpose, and that they are well done, and that they really matter to you. Okay, so that's one way to look at it. Another way, if you wanted to take the Gemini side of Mercury as well, just to look at it, and I think you might get both of these flavors that could come in. But Mercury also rules Gemini as well, to keep that in mind. And Gemini is in a much better spot. It actually sextiles Aries, because air and fire sextile each other. So you could also as well get the excitement too that comes in with Mercury as well. The reason why Gemini and Aries get along is because Aries, the action, the passion of Aries fuels Gemini's mind intellectually. Now that you're doing things, I'm seeing things I didn't know before, and this is so cool because now I have new experiences and I'm learning things, and it brings the passion as well. And same with Mercury's gathering information. Gemini likes to gather information that also then excites the Aries, where Aries is like, oh, cool, I didn't know this. Let me act on this new thing, this thing that you just told me, and move from there. So I think there could be kind of both aspects that could come in a lot with this retrograde period, is not only the excitement of acting, of being the person that you're about to be and become, but also the pressure of trying to make sure that everything is coming together, that you're not being careless, and that you're making decisions that really do represent you and who you are. All right. So that's what I'm going to leave you with there. And then now I'm going to start to get into the charts and talk about the exact days starting with today. Let me look for a second though at the chat to see what y'all are saying. Just taking a look at the chat. Carolina, I know, perfectionism, it's hard, especially with the Virgo influence coming in, or with the Mercury at least. You got to find that right balance between just putting things out there, just doing things, but at the same time, making sure that they're slightly a little bit better than they could be, and that there's a little bit more thought into it than you maybe would have initially given it. Yeah, Erin, I'm the same way. You know, I've got tons of planets in Gemini, so I'm just like, let's get this show on the road. Let's make this happen. But I still feel like there's a lot more for me I need to think about. I think the chat's just a little bit slow. Good, I'm glad you like the analogies. Sometimes I'm not sure if the analogies are super helpful, but to be honest, that's a lot of the way that like I learned astrology. I know a lot of people want like books and writing, and there's tons of books that are really great, but I think to me it's the imagery that helps me the most to learn astrology. Tiffany, you're asking about my daily horoscopes. No, my people ask this a lot. So I do the daily horoscopes by my time, my 24-hour period of time, and that doesn't mean just because you live in another country that it's a different period of time. People always think you did it for the day, you did it for like the wrong time period. You get your horoscopes out too late. And when I upload my horoscopes, it's usually midnight, my time, which is the exact time that the horoscope starts for. And if you're in Saudi Arabia, if you're in, you know, Egypt, if you're in France, whatever that 24 period usually is, the 24-hour period after I upload my video is what it's for, regardless of what your clock says, if that makes sense. You just have to convert my time into your time, if that makes sense. And that's the time period before. So my horoscopes aren't late. They just call time different than what time is called in your city, if that makes sense. Okay. Okay, perfect. Good, I'm glad that helped, Tiffany. So yeah, so just do the time conversion. And I list time conversions down in my description box too, to give you some of the popular places that I know people watch me at. Yes, Avery, I can speak slower. Sorry, I just get kind of nervous sometimes, and I'm a Gemini, so my mind moves pretty quickly. And I don't want to bore you or lose you all. Also, just for those of you who have just joined, I do have a PDF, a free PDF in my profile, not in my profile, in the description box to this video. So if you want to click on that link, it should take you to the charts that I'm about to dive into right now that we'll talk about. And also has some questions there and some other things for the signs. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to talk about the chart. Let me make sure. Oh, I'm trying to see what's on my screen, what I'm screen sharing. Oh, here we go, perfect. Let's get back there. There we go. All right, so what we're going to talk about is today. Let me get this current right now. This is for what we're going right now. As you can see in this chart, we do have Mercury. It's red. Do you see it? It's red. That means it's retrograde. I'm using Astro Gold, the program. So it is retrograde as we speak. It just turned retrograde here, starting. And what I think is super interesting about what's going on here is Mercury starting to go retrograde, is that it's doing it after it has been in a conjunction with Venus for most of the week and for a little bit last week. Bringing up lots of conversations here about, again, as you've been hearing me say, money, relationships, about what it is that you value and what it is that's important to you being a big thing. I think that this Mercury retrograde is going to be about, because that's the note that it's starting on. We're thinking about, what do we want to do with money? Who do we want in our life, especially with the full moon in Libra coming, and what is important to us. All right. So I think that's going to be a big theme about it, about what's going on. I think what's also interesting, though, is that as Mercury and Venus have been making this conjunction all week, they begin to separate at the point that Venus begins to square Pluto, as you can see it in this chart. So I think we're starting to realize today and this weekend that there are some more changes that we need to make. As we've been thinking about relationships, as we've been thinking about money and what's important to us, I think we realize, okay, I need to tweak some things in order for me to really begin to do this better, to put this in the right place, to put my life in the right direction coming in. And then that's the point when Mercury goes retrograde and Mercury says, wait a second, okay, I get it. There are some changes that I need to make in relationships and to what I value, but I don't know if I'm on board with this yet. I don't know if I understand this yet. I don't know what all of this means. And so I think that's kind of where we are now, where it's like, okay, I think there's lots of changes that I need to make, but before I really step into these changes in relationships and with money, I need to go back over some stuff in regards to my identity, in regards to what I'm doing, so that I can make sure that these changes that I'm making in my life, again, with relationships and money to put my life in a better spot, are not just like for no reason, that I'm not going to regret them later and realize that I did something that I didn't really want, that I didn't really mean. And I think Mercury going retrograde now at this time is saying, okay, I think our heart in a sense knows that there are some changes we need to make, but mentally we're not quite there yet when it comes to making all of these things, and we still need to figure out who we are and what's important to us. Okay, so I think that's what's going on a lot with this retrograde. Just trying to figure out before we can step into some big changes that we're making here, and the things that are important to us, to make sure that we are doing it right. Okay. This is also, again, as you heard me say in my daily, with Mars coming into a square with the sun, hard because we want to act, we want to do, we want to make things happen. The excitement starting to build with a lot of planets moving into Aries, but there's something in our mind that's saying, even though the excitement's there, maybe we need to go back over some things in order to really step into it. Okay, so that's what I see going on. The next thing I want to talk about, we'll go to March 30th. Where are we? Here. Remove my chart. Let's do it by the day. So that's what Mercury's doing. We're rethinking before we step into some big changes with money, big changes in relationships. We're trying to make sure, do we really want this? Is this really important to us? Is this how we really feel? Especially after so much has changed the past few years. I think we're trying to figure out, okay, now is this what we want? Now is this what's important to us? This is kind of like a new life. I don't know who I am in this new life anymore. You know, like, what is this all about? Going on. You know, what happened to me, what was it, I actually moved to Salt Lake City at the beginning of Saturn and Sagittarius, 6 months before Saturn moved into Sagittarius. And I had a totally different life then. I lived in New York City before I lived here, and I didn't have a YouTube channel doing videos, and I had a different job and different friends. And I think now that Saturn has left Sagittarius, so much has changed. And now that we're starting to make even more changes in relationships and money, we're trying to make sure, am I doing things by like the Brittany 3 years ago that just moved to Salt Lake City and didn't know anyone here and had all these ideas about what Salt Lake would be? Or am I making decisions now by the Brittany who's been in Salt Lake City for 3 years and has a YouTube channel, which makes my life quite different, where now I associate with a totally different group of people. And so I think that's what we're trying to make sure here while we move forward, is that we're doing it in the right way with the right idea of ourselves in mind coming in. Yeah, interesting to think about, because I'm just thinking about my own life. I definitely think this Mercury retrograde is finally going to be a chance for me to feel much more comfortable, right, with with my channel. Sometimes it's very nerve-wracking doing these kind of things, but I think Mercury retrograde is going to help me say, okay, Brittany, you're not that person you used to be, who used to work for someone else behind the scenes, so that I can feel better. Moving on. So that's what I see there. So I'll move now to March 30th, the chart. Here we are. What I think is interesting about March 30th is because Mercury, as it's going retrograde, comes into a trine with the North Node, which is the next aspect that it's going to make after its retrograde period coming in, other than the moon, which is going to be touching it a few times. And I think what Mercury retrograde is saying, as it's going backward, as we're redefining ourselves, thinking of ourselves differently, trying to figure out how we need to act and do things differently in order to move forward and how we can make changes that are better for us. I think we're really trying to figure out with the trine to the North Node in Leo, what makes us happy. Like, not just about doing things, not just about getting things done and making sure things are done in the right way, but how can we do things that we really enjoy? Make sure that the actions that we're putting in place are just good for us all around. Okay, and I think that's what it is that we're trying to do. It's not just about doing things, it's about making them happy. I almost feel like this is like we're trying to get like the whole package almost. You know, it's like we want to do things, but we want to like have the finished picture. We want to make sure everything's done right, and we want to be happy while it all comes together. And I think that's what is coming in here is like, as we're doing things, we have a whole bunch of other things we're trying to figure out. And I think Mercury retrograde is going to help us figure out how to step into some new chapter in a better way, feeling more whole with all of us there, how we can do things that can really get us to the future and how we can be happy doing it. And I think even though we want to move forward with so many planets now out of spots that they were in for years, dragging things down, I think we want to move forward. And I think there's a lot of energy and a lot of ability to move forward. But I think Mercury retrograde is saying, okay, before you do that, just check in. It's only going to be 3 weeks. It's just like a 3-week check-in. That's nothing, you know, and the long scheme of things are helping to make sure that you're mentally on board with all of this forward progress that we've been making, right? So being happy, I think, is definitely going to be a very important thing. I also think it's important to notice that around the time Mercury trines this North Node, we also do have the full moon coming in Libra right around this time, to bringing an ending or some kind of completion in relationships so that we can focus here where the sun is more in ourselves while we're working some things out coming in. All right, and this full moon is going to be making a T-square over to Capricorn. So as we're working out some details about our identity and about who it is that we are, I think maybe there are some big decisions coming up about where we see our life going, or we're thinking more seriously about our life. I think these decisions, in my opinion, you shouldn't make them till after the retrograde. So I think right now we're starting to think more seriously about our life. We're starting to think about what makes us happy, and especially with the full moon relationships, what relationships get us, who can really help us accomplish the things that we want, who's supposed to be in our life, who's not supposed to be in our life in some way. And I think that's a lot of what is going on here today. We're just trying to get everything out, work everything out so that we can put it in the right place, and maybe having to cut some relationships in the process, change some relationships in order to feel better, or work to rearrange your relationships in some way to allow you to be this new person too. Now that you're changing, people need to understand, look, I'm not the person that you once thought I was anymore. I'm not. And you need to talk to me as this different person and not as this other person. And so I think that could be a lot of what's coming in too, is that as we're rethinking our identity with this full moon in Libra, having to also change some of our relationships now to accommodate these new things that are coming up. Bring our relationships into different chapters eventually and get them on board with what's going on. With this square coming in and the full moon to Capricorn as well, I think it's definitely going to be a big thing about which relationships are going with you and in what direction, being huge. You know, so I see it definitely being kind of like an interesting kind of influence where we've got like so much passion. This is the way I've been thinking about it all day. Another way that I see it, where it's like you just start dating someone and you know, like things are like passionate, especially with Mercury, all these planets in Aries. You've got a North Node in Leo trining Mercury. So I think that there's like super excitement. You just started dating someone, you're like so happy, and like things are fun and you're doing things. Maybe things are a little bit uncertain. You don't know who each other is. You just met each other. And then all of a sudden you get a full moon in Libra with the square to Capricorn coming in saying, okay, well, where's this relationship going? Or is it going somewhere? And you're like, whoa, like, we just met. Like, we literally just met. Like, this thing just kind of started, and now all of a sudden you want to know, like, if we're going to get married, if this relationship is going in the right place, if you're on board with me, if it's what's happening. So I think there's kind of like a lot of that kind of experience coming in too, where it's like, dude, I just want to be fun. I just want to have fun and date. And you've got someone else that's like, okay, well, can't we have fun, but also like see a future? And so I think it's one of these weird kind of things where at this full moon, we're really trying to make sure that we're not just doing some things that that are good for us, but that we have the right people on board with us and that we're bringing it all together. All right. Sorry, I have my family. You probably hear this ringing in the background. I have my family texting me. I don't know how to make the sound stop. Oh, I should probably just turn the sound off on my laptop. That would be smart. Okay. So that's what's happening there. Then, and also what's important to note as well is on the day of the full moon, I think it's going to happen March 31st. We also do have Venus here, obviously ruled by Venus, rules Libra, or, that kind of thing at 29 degrees Aries too. So I think as we have this full moon in relationships coming in, putting a lot of pressure on our relationships, especially with the 29 degrees, we especially are like not playing around when it comes to other people. And with Venus being in Aries, it's like, are you in my life or are you not? And I think what's coming in with Mercury retrograde is we're finally starting to understand who we need, who we don't need, where our life is going, and trying to start making some decisions and to understand and get more clarity on what needs to happen. Okay. What else? The next day I want to show you is April 1st. So the day after the full moon. And that's where we are now. And what's going on there is when we have Mercury in a conjunction with the sun. And to me, what Mercury in a conjunction with the sun does is a lot of it's integration a lot of times. Because we have Mercury going backwards to meet the sun coming in. And a lot of times I think what happens with that is where Mercury, especially when it starts to get ahead of the sun, it's almost like the way I see it, Mercury comes back to check in with the sun, and the sun goes, Mercury, where have you been? Like, what have you learned? Especially with Mercury in Gemini, being the ruler of Gemini, the sun's like, you've been gone for so long. Like, what had gone on? What had you learned? Like, you were, so far away. And Mercury comes back at this retrograde period to say, oh, like the sun, thinking that it rules like the core of yourself, your being, says, oh, okay, this is what I learned. Like, this is what I've been doing. Like, let me tell you this really cool story of like something that happened or something, whether it's good or bad. And the sun goes, oh, okay. Like now I get it. Like, now I get it. Like, I wish you called me more often. I wish we spoke before this, but now I understand what you're dealing with and what's happened. And I think when the sun hits Mercury, it's going to happen on April 1st at the after this full moon. I think it's really helping us to understand better what these past few years of our life have been about, what they all mean. I think it finally starts to help us integrate some of these past experiences into our life so that we can start to feel much better. All right, so I see a lot of that going on, and I think we're trying to integrate all of that stuff so that we can proceed in a way that makes us happier and can help us move forward. Okay, so that's what I have there. Venus also at that time, I didn't mention it, but also kind of interesting was Venus was around Uranus too, around this time too. So lots of unexpected things could be coming up in relationships. I wouldn't say it's a good time to make decisions, especially with Mercury retrograde, or to make long-lasting things happen. But I would say maybe there's a lot of conversations that are going on, especially with Mercury close to the sun, that are bringing some big upsets in relationships. Maybe some decisions aren't made yet, but maybe people start to say, look, I realize I'm a different person now. I realized I'm doing different things unexpectedly that reveal themselves to, especially after the Libra full moon, with Venus, the ruler of the full moon, being a bad spot coming in, that could definitely, I want to say, could bring up some hard things that do come in. So maybe just be a little bit careful of that while we're trying to understand who it is that we are and get more of the right people on board with us. I don't see the relationship stuff being too bad, because right after Venus makes this, the full moon, and makes this, kind of hard aspect to Uranus. Venus doesn't like Uranus because Uranus doesn't really like being in Taurus. But Venus then moves into its sign of where it's home. So even if some unexpected things do come up in relationships, or some unexpected news, especially conversations in some way, with the moon also opposing this on that day, I think they will in the end hopefully help things begin to stabilize out more, and hopefully help you begin to live a life and have relationships that you value and that are more important to you. So even if some unexpected things do come up with relationships, now that your identity is changing, I think the relationships will eventually start to stabilize out and you'll start to feel much better about them. All right. The other day I want to mention, Mercury conjunct, that was April 1st, right? I've got two more dates for you. April 4th, and then I'll look at the chat. And then I'll go over the sun signs. So what we've got here on April 4th, today, Venus and Taurus, that's right, that's what I wanted to mention, Venus and Taurus. I see that being a very good thing. Venus is going to be here really helping us understand the value and the worth of things, I think, going on now that we've rethought about ourselves, about who we are, about how we do things. I think Venus and Taurus is going to help bring more of that stability. It's going to help us understand what's important to us, understand what it is we need in our life. Mercury as well, coming in, making a square at the very end of its retrograde period to both Saturn and Mars as well, I think bringing up some hard conversations and some hard decisions. So it's almost like we start to go back to rethink about our identity and who it is that we are. And as we review things about ourselves, we realize there are more things that we need to do differently. There are more decisions that we need to make. There are things that we now know about ourselves that we didn't know about before coming in that maybe could bring up some hard conversations, or some things moving forward that could be a little difficult coming in. And I think this to me is kind of what the retrograde period is leading up to here, is that we've been trying to move forward, doing things that we like, be happy, make all the changes. And I don't think we've been thinking necessarily about, are all these changes really going to work for us? Are they what's really the best for us inside? Is it what we really, really value? And I think as we slowly go back over the few days or the 3 weeks of the retrograde period, we start to understand more, okay, this is what I want. Yes, this is what I need. This is how I really feel about things. Like this, maybe this is like an uncomfortable truth about something that maybe I didn't like, or I didn't understand at first, but now I need to figure out more and integrate. And and I think that's what's going to come up there. What else? So decisions, I see there being lots of decisions that maybe you need to make at the end, which is why I don't recommend especially making any big decisions during the retrograde period, because there's definitely going to be, by the time at the very end of Mercury retrograde, some hard aspects that come in that could be a little bit restricting, and you don't want to make any decisions now realizing that you are someone else, or that there's more information that you didn't have, or that you feel differently about yourself than you did at the beginning of the retrograde, especially knowing that there's going to be this kind of restricting influence that's going to come in. Okay. And then this, of course, could have a lot to do with what happened a few weeks ago when Mercury was last in this spot. So at the beginning of this month, Mercury was also here. So maybe revisiting some decisions and things that came up around that time. Yeah, the beginning of March. And then the last day I want to mention, which I also think is kind of cool, on April 15th. This is the last day of the retrograde. Here we've also got a new moon on the last day of the retrograde. How cool is that? So it's like we've been trying to figure out for the past 3 weeks, who are we? What do we do now? What are we all about? Maybe having some hard truths come up, feeling a little bit restricted, having to make some decisions that are difficult, or realizing some things come up that we have to decide later that are hard. Maybe realizing we got to make changes with people, that people don't get us, and having a lot of hard conversations happen. And then at the very end of the retrograde, we get a new moon right as Mercury starts to go direct, saying, okay, now that you've worked all that stuff out, now that you've rethought your identity, who you are, the relationships that you need, how can you now finally start to move forward on it, feeling more free to be this person that it is that you want. All right. And we at this full moon, at this new moon, we also have the sun, the new moon very, very close to Uranus, I think bringing a big chance for you to break free from anything that's been maybe holding you back, to be more open about all of these things you've been thinking about, to actually make them happen. Could bring lots of unexpected things up, but I think they're unexpected things that are going to come at the end of this retrograde, because we've been thinking about them for quite some time. We've been going over them in our head for quite some time. We've been getting more answers, more clarity, maybe more hard, information. And I think at the end of this retrograde, when Mercury goes direct again with the new moon conjunct Uranus, we finally start to say, okay, all of this just needs to come out. I've realized so much. I've, become this new person. I'm ready to move forward, free of the past. I've realized things, and it's time to make it go, to be it, to do it in whatever way that I think can be very liberating for you, but can be upsetting sometimes, especially depending if you're on the bad side of this, or if this new moon is in a bad aspect to your chart. Okay, so I've got that, and then of course Venus here as well. in Taurus, really helping you to say, not only am I going to do this thing that I've realized that I am breaking free, but it's going to last. I want it to be like more or less my final say, especially because Mercury is going to come back into that square with Saturn soon, and really helping some of these decisions and things that we've worked out during Mercury retrograde, I think, to have staying power a lot. So I think we're just trying to make sure we're making the right decisions and putting our life in the right direction with all of that. Okay. So I think that's what I'm going to say there. I'm going to take a look at the chat and then I'll get into the sun signs, and I think that'll be it. All right, let me look at the chat. Okay. Oh yeah, sorry, did I not say? Yes, Mercury retrograde ends April 15th on the new moon in Aries, conjunct Uranus. Yep, so it'll be from now right to, I believe it's 3 weeks. The retrograde period is usually 3 weeks, and about halfway through the retrograde is when Mercury starts to conjunct the sun to integrate everything that we've learned. And that's when kind of like your mind meets your spirit in some way, to kind of like bring a reunion of sorts. Because what happens is that Mercury gets like very far away from the sun, and it's like our mind runs away with us, and there comes a time when we need to make sure that we're all aligned and that we're not all over the place. And that's what a Mercury retrograde does, is I think it tries to reunite like our mind and our spirit and what's going on, so that we can make sure that we're not making decisions based off an idea of ourselves, or based off of like an idea that sounds good, but based off of like something that really resonates with us too. Is it okay to sign up for a program during retrograde if it has to do with something related to an ongoing work theme? That's an interesting question. I mean, if it's something to learn, or like a program that you think would help you learn things, then I would do it. Yeah. Um, I don't know if I would make any like serious decisions that you can't get out of, but I think that Mercury retrograde would definitely be a good time to gather more information about what is going on with you, and to communicate perhaps about what you're feeling. Oh, I'm sorry, Justin, about Mercury retrograde, about the car accidents. Okay. Thanks, Emily. Yeah, I think I just silenced my computer to get the dinging to stop. Should have thought about that. I know that's kind of interesting, Stephanie, on the huge decision concerning your health. After 10 years of therapy, you want to know if you should get back surgery. I mean, could you reschedule? Would it be like, I mean, I don't know. Would it be that much of a problem to schedule until later? Hmm. I know I'm hard with health things because I'm not a doctor, so I don't like to give health advice. And if you notice in my readings, I don't typically mention the sixth house as health a lot, even though it is. Um, I don't know. Part of me does want to. Part of me would definitely recommend that you wait to do it until after the retrograde, which isn't too long. I mean, I don't think that anything. I mean, to be honest, like I don't know if anything will go too terribly wrong. I mean, it might be easier for there to be mistakes that are made during the surgery. Maybe during Mercury retrograde, but otherwise, I don't know if it will be too bad. I'll have to think about that one. When will I be doing personal readings? I'm just taking care of some of my old ones that I have now. Um, and yeah, and I'm actually planning on probably starting to do more readings after Mercury comes out of retrograde. I'm actually going to redesign my website, my shop during Mercury retrograde. I've actually already been working on it, but I want to just wait a little bit to see if anything comes up. And so once I release my new website, then I probably will have readings there. So I want to say after the Mercury retrograde, I'll probably wait till Venus gets at 22 degrees Taurus, since that's where my natal Jupiter is, before I release it. I especially want it to be in Venus and Taurus because that's when money matters will start to improve. Do you look at your natal chart to see where Mercury is retrograding? Yes, yes. I would definitely do that. If you can read your natal chart, definitely see what house it's in. For sure, that will tell a lot. And then I would look for the house of Saturn and Mars, which I'll talk to you about in a second, and of the North Node. Those will be important. Okay, so now I'll go into sun signs. Oh, before I do that, I'll do this about Mercury retrograde. Sorry, I get kind of chatty sometimes. I hope that I'm speaking with substance. But I'll try to do the signs next. Let me just answer this one question. Mercury retrograde natally, if you have it. I have Mercury retrograde natally. I don't know. I don't really feel like it affects me too much. Maybe it's because I have a bunch of other planets in Gemini. I think Mercury retrograde could definitely make someone a little bit more like internal instead of them like thinking outwardly or communicating outwardly. Maybe it all happens within the mind. That to me is more of what Mercury retrograde is about. They don't express themselves as openly outwardly. And maybe also Mercury retrograde to me, this is just my opinion, would make someone a little bit more of a, how do I say this, like a serious thinker. Maybe because people with Mercury retrograde, maybe this is like my Chiron, I have Chiron on Gemini, but maybe because people with Mercury retrograde aren't outward about what they're thinking because they're more inward. I like to think they process things a little bit more deeply than perhaps someone with Mercury direct would. And they're a little bit more, yeah, they like to think about things and mull them over a little bit. So that's the way that I see if you have Mercury retrograde natally. I don't think it to me, I mean, it could make you a little bit, slower at thinking. But I think you would see that by other aspects in the chart. Mercury retrograde to me just means maybe you're a little bit more introverted. You don't say maybe what's on your mind as much as you should, and maybe you like to sit with things, just in my opinion, a little bit longer. Thanks, Stephanie. Okay. Okay, so now we'll go into the signs so that I don't keep you too long. Yes, Cheryl. No, I totally agree. I hope I'm being clear. I definitely think there's been a positive energy shift without a doubt. I will take tons of planets in Aries, Mars and Saturn and Capricorn any day over like a bunch of planets in Pisces squaring Saturn and Mars in Sagittarius for the past few years. So it's definitely a positive thing for sure. Lots of forward momentum, lots of passion coming in, excitement. It's just trying to make sure that we're using this passion and excitement in the best way and that we're doing things that really can help us and resonate, which is what the challenge is, which is very different than what the challenge was like a few months ago. Like the challenge a few months ago, even a few weeks ago, was I'm scared, this new thing, I don't know how I feel about it. We were having like an existential crisis of sorts inside, like, oh my goodness, this is like, I'm scared, I don't know, this is like not who I am, and like all of this. And now that more planets are coming into Aries, it's like, okay, there's less of an existential crisis about who I am, about what I'm doing, less emotional stuff. Now I'm actually doing it. I don't have to hide anymore. I'm not like afraid like I used to be. It's just a matter of doing it now, figuring out how to do it and making it happen. And Mercury retrograde wants to make sure you're doing it in a way that makes you happy, in the right ways. Yeah. And really, yeah, I think that's what it is. Yeah, meditation and self-focus for sure. I think there's a great opportunity for insights that can come in with Mercury retrograde if you want to do that. Okay, so now I'll go through the signs. Yes, Anna, if you need surgery, like by all means, and it's urgent, like without a doubt, I would go for it. And if your doctor recommends it, especially if your doctor recommends it, but if you can wait like a few weeks, then I don't know, just personally, I don't know why you wouldn't. Okay, let me do the signs so I don't keep you all too much longer. I'm going to pull up the chart. Let's start with always, I'll start with Aries. Again, Aries most closely represents my general forecast that I give you all most days, just because Aries starts with the defaults of the sky. Aries is on the first house most closely, so that's why Aries might resonate, or you might hear me talk about this more generally. So with Aries, again, let me get my pen out. We've got, this is Aries. This is your first house. Mercury retrograde's going retrograde here in your first, so rethinking your identity, how you do things, who it is that you are, now that you've been doing something new for so long, to put your life in a better place. You're trying to figure out what it is that makes you happy. How can you do things that make you happy? Are you being the person that you've always wanted to be, that it is that you really, really like? Once you figure out who it is you want to be, what you really like, with the North Node being in your fifth house of happiness, then it's time to decide, okay, how can I do more of this? How can I put my life in the right direction? Now knowing for sure what it is that makes me happy and who I really am, okay? And trying to do all of that. And so first, what's going to come for you, Aries, is not making the big decisions, putting your life in the right direction, but it's first, which is kind of like an interesting thing. What do you enjoy? What do you like? You know, it's like before you can make big decisions about things, about your career, about where you see your life going, you have to know, like, do I really like this? Do I really enjoy this? It's coming in with the fifth house. Coming in. Could also be sometimes you get with the fifth house like a romantic relationship sometimes. So maybe possibly doing things differently with a romantic relationship that you may have to make some decisions about later on. That could be definitely hard decisions, serious decisions, decisions about what's going on long term coming in. So that's what I see going on for you, Aries. Now let's go to Taurus. I'm going to do them in order. Maybe I should mix that up every once in a while so that I don't have all my like Aquariuses and Pisces waiting till last. But I figure you being the last signs of the zodiac also gives you like a talent for being patient sometimes, especially my Pisces. You can be patient. But maybe I'll mix that up every once in a while. But right now we're going to do Taurus right here. All right, because I'm doing a Taurus horoscope, that's going to put you on the first house. And it's going to bring Mercury retrograde here in your 12th house of your insides and your spirituality and of the past. So you're rethinking who you are, again, on the inside, your internal states, your spirituality, maybe, what you need to feel most comfortable on the inside, maybe also the past. Getting over the past can be a big thing. Even though I know we've had a big moment of getting over the past, I think my Tauruses especially are still trying to let some old things go and to think differently about the past in different ways and to think spiritually, maybe just renew themselves spiritually so that they can start to move forward more freely. A lot of that's going to have to do right over here where the North Node is, which is in the fourth house of home and a family. So Taurus has to figure out, what do I want at home? What do I need to feel the most comfortable, the most stable in my life in order to feel more at peace with myself? And how can I get over some things from the past and get more comfortable with myself spiritually and internally so that I can then start to have the home life that I want, feel more emotionally comfortable, and build something that is really important to me. With the square eventually coming in to Saturn and to Mars, the very end of this retrograde in your ninth house, I think it has a lot to do with something new that you're doing in some way. So maybe there's something new that's coming in here and you're trying to figure out, is this really comfortable for me? Is this really can I really build on this new thing to bring it to where it is that I want to go? Maybe that's what you're trying to figure out as well. Happening. Maybe there's something new and you're trying to figure out, should I take this new opportunity? Right. Does it really resonate with me? What does it mean for my home and family? What kind of home life do I want? What do I need emotionally? And then once you answer that question first, the what do I need emotionally to feel much more comfortable and to have the home life and the stability that I want, then the new thing, you make the decision about the new thing. Okay. I hope that makes sense. Figuring out first what you need to feel comfortable emotionally, and then making a decision about something new that you're doing. What else do we have? Let's go to Gemini. Here we are. Gemini is going to put you on your first house. So here we are. Number 1 makes a retrograde happen right here. Aries, your 11th house of your goals, your dreams, and your hopes for the future. So you're thinking a lot about where you see your life going. Maybe you saw your life going in one direction 3 years ago, and now you see it going somewhere else, and you're trying to figure out, okay, how can I see this more clearly, where my life is going, and how can I move forward on that? A lot of times with the 11th house, you also get authentically, like how can you just be more of your authentic self in some way? Maybe you weren't being as authentic as you could be in your old life, and you're trying to figure out how can I really express my truth in the best way. Also in the 11th, you get groups of people. Am I associating with the right people? Maybe I need to associate with different groups of people. I'm a Gemini. I didn't know anyone interested into astrology 3 years ago, and now I know tons of you. So I need to figure out how then do I start to relate to this new group of people that I'm associating with, and to really feel more comfortable in it and do things in a way that resonate with me. So that's a thing that can be coming in there with the trine to the North Node. It's going to be in your 3rd house of talk and of communication. You're trying to figure out here, there I am with the writing again. You're trying to figure out how it is that you can communicate about your goals, about your dreams. How do you want to think about your future? In what way? How do you want to talk about your future? How do you want to talk with groups of people to let people know what you're feeling? And I think that's what you're trying to rethink, is where you see your life going, how you can be more open about it, and how you can communicate in the right ways about yourself, about the future that you see with people. I think once you figure that out, then your decision comes here. Saturn and Mars are going to be conjunct in a square with this Mercury retrograde. And that's about a change, perhaps, that you need to make. Sorry. Let me write this. You got your 8th house. Okay, and so I think that's what you're trying to figure out. How do I want to communicate here with groups of people, and in what way? And where do I see my future going, and what change do I need to make to let more of my future in, to associate more with the right people, to be more authentically myself going on. Yeah, who also, sometimes that comes in too with the 8th house. Who do I need to partner with intimately, and in what way? All right. Sorry, always when I do my Gemini and my Cancer, I try to think, what does that mean for me? Is that my new store? I'm going to be making a big change to, my new website? Maybe. All right. Okay, Cancer. Right here, this is going to put you on the 1st house. Mercury retrograde for you is going to be in a big part of your chart, your 10th house of career. So you're trying to figure out, well, what is going on with your life? Where do you see your life going? How can you put your life in the right direction? What career do you want? What reputation? What do you want to be known for? Are you being, maybe recently you weren't known for the things you want to be known for. You didn't have the career, you didn't have the reputation that it is that you want. I think you're starting to step into that reputation and that career, and just having to figure out, okay, now how do I do things in the right way? And in what way do I do it? With Mercury making a trine over here to the North Node in your 2nd house of money and confidence, it has a lot to do about this. I always resonate with Cancer. I'm a Cancer rising. I always like rising signs better because this makes more sense for me. But for Cancer, you're trying to figure out, okay, what do I want to be known for? What direction do I want to put my life in? And how can I be more confident stepping into this direction? How can I get more money, more income from this new career path that it is that I have? And how can I use more of my gifts and skills and talents in a positive way that can move forward? What really makes me happy when it comes to that? All right, with the square to Saturn and Mars, which is going to be in your 7th house of, it's going to be in your 7th house of relationships. Once you figure out what reputation you want, what you want to be known for, and how to be confident and make money doing it, then you have to start integrating it into your relationships so that you can have the people on board with you that get you and that can move forward. And that's when, after you understand what you want financially, with confidence to be known for, then you have to make some decisions about relationships. Okay, can do my relationships understand this? Do they want to work with me? How do I bring them on board now that I've realized what I need to feel better stepping into a new career or life direction, and to feel better about it? Right, so that's for Cancer. We have Next, Leo. Here is Leo. This is the first house for a Leo. We have Mercury retrograde happening in the 9th. Here, where Aries is, that for you is maybe something new that it is that you're doing in some way. Maybe you've been making a lot of changes lately in your life to step into something new that's more exciting, traveling, studying, doing something you have not done before, starting to move forward on this new thing, but trying to figure out in what way, how do I move forward in this new thing? You know, who am I now that I'm doing something new, studying, traveling along those lines. With the trine coming over to the north node, a lot of it is this new thing really me? Does it really like me? How can I do this new thing, study or travel in a way that makes me happy, that I enjoy, that just works for me all around, right? Once you, as a Leo, figure out how you can be happy doing this new thing, or how you can do something that really resonates with you, that's different, then it comes time to figure out how you can start to, with Saturn and Mars here in your 6th house, how you can do it more on the day-to-day with your job and your daily routines, figuring out what's going on more with your job. Okay, but what's going to come first is you figuring out what new thing you're doing, how you can be more excited about life, what you enjoy more. And only once you figure that out, Mercury retrograde is going to help you figure that out, then can you make the decision about your job. Then can you make the decision about your daily routine. So I hope you're understanding, as I'm doing these horoscopes, you need to figure out this aspect first, this trine to the north node. And then after you figure that out, then you're going to start to make these decisions about your job or about what's going on with Mars and Saturn, but not the other way around. You know, maybe we've been making decisions about Mars and Saturn, like maybe we've been making decisions about our job, if I'm speaking from a Leo's perspective, since this is the example I've got in front of me. Maybe you've been making decisions about your job or your daily routines, but you're still not sure about them in some way, and Mercury retrograde is going to help you figure out, okay, well, what can you do to really be sure about your job? What can you do to really make sure it's right for you, that you're excited about it moving forward? And really moving and working those things out. And so that's why I say making decisions. I don't recommend it until the end of this Mercury retrograde period, because Saturn and Mars are going to slam you at the end of it, making some big decisions and going over some things. And if you make a wrong decision earlier, Saturn and Mars making the square to Mercury is going to make it harder. So I would just wait until you figure things out first before making those other decisions. Okay. So there we are with that. Not that it looks like any particularly hard for Leos, but just using that as an example, especially now that a bunch of stuff has come out of a Leo's 8th house. I think things are definitely starting to get better there. Now for, where are we? Virgo. This is going to be your 1st house, Virgo. And what we've got is Mercury retrograde happening right here. It's going to be in your 8th house of changes. This could be a little difficult. The 8th house, I always normally interpret as being pretty difficult in some ways, especially when you get in squares to it. And so there's some big change perhaps that's going on, maybe that you're rethinking, maybe you've been changing your life recently, trying to figure out, is this what I really want? This change, is it not what I want? 8th house also does rule sexual and intimate relationships, business relationships. So maybe there's some kind of business partner or sexual partner as well, that you're also trying to figure out, how do I be more authentic in this relationship? How do I make this relationship work for me in some way? Also with the 8th house, you get lots of money going out, debts, maybe trying to figure out, how can I get a hold of my finances too in some way? With Mercury making a trine over to the north node in your 12th, I think you're trying to figure out, how can I be more comfortable? What change do I need to make here in order so that I can feel more whole, more at peace, more spiritually comfortable? The change could still be hard, and we still have to make a hard change here, a hard thing coming in, or there could be maybe some hard realizations about a business partner or a sexual relationship, but I think they're meant to help you find more peace with what's going on. All right. I think once you decide what change you need to make to feel more at peace with yourself, or once you understand better, I think that's the right word, once you understand better what you're really feeling deep inside and what change you need to make to be more at peace, then comes the decisions here about what you need to do to be happier with Saturn and Mars in your 5th house. All right, and you need to figure out what change will make you feel the best before you can start to decide about kids. If you have any kids, comes in as well with the 5th house. Before you decide about a passion project that it is that you're working on, or just something that you enjoy. Okay, so maybe some big changes coming in, but once you figure out what change you need to make, then you've got to decide, okay, how can I do something that makes me happier? How can I work with kids? What does this mean for a creative project if you're working with a business partner? What does it mean for a creative project that I've got going on? Okay, I hope that makes sense. I was like, it's Mercury retrograde. I'm not feeling as clear as I usually am when I communicate. Maybe it's all in my head. But, okay. Then we've got Libra here on the 1st. Since I'm doing your horoscope, I'm going to put you in the 1st. We've got Mercury retrograde happening in your 7th. This is a big relationship chapter for Libras, or at least a moment, a relationship few weeks. I wouldn't recommend doing much with relationships, to be honest, during this retrograde period, especially now before Venus moves into Taurus, just because Venus is in Aries and it's getting hit by Pluto in not a good fashion, not a good way. But for a Libra, you're the only person I might suggest maybe possibly doing things with relationships, just because Aries rules your 7th house. Okay, and I think that's what you're rethinking is, who do you need in your life? In what way? What people are for you? How do you work with people? What would make you happy coming in? Okay, I just lost my pen. So that's what you're trying to figure out with relationships. With Mercury making a trine over here to the North Node in your 11th house. Relationship goals. Where do you see your relationships going? The future of your relationships. I think that's what you're trying to think about. What kind of relationships would make you feel more comfortable in life? In what way? What kind of relationships can help you associate with the right people? How can you do partner with people in the ways that can help you reach some of your goals and dreams? Okay, once you figure that out and get more clarity on that, then it's going to help you here where Saturn and Mars are, and that's going to be in your 4th house of home and family. It's going to help you to, there we go, writing again. It's going to help you to have a better home life. It's going to help you to feel more comfortable emotionally in some way, or I don't even know if it's going to help you to feel more comfortable with the square, but you're going to have to make some decisions about how it is you feel about relationships and how you partner with them intimately. Okay, and so I think maybe that's what's going on, is that you thinking about relationships, you're thinking now about, okay, I have a relationship. This is where I see this relationship going, or where I'm going and who I see with me. And then you have to make the emotional integration after that. Maybe you have to communicate with the relationships about some things that you've realized, and then after that occurs, I think the end of this Mercury retrograde is going to be some decisions about what relationships you build your life on. The foundation of your relationships. Do the other people in your life feel, especially with the 4th house ruling emotions, feel the same way that you feel? Do you have to change how you relate to people emotionally at home and family coming in, but you having to decide what future you see yourself with in relationships before the decisions about home comes and the emotional decisions about how you feel start to come into play. Okay. Scorpio, we'll go there. This is your 1st house, Scorpio. Mercury retrograde for you is going to be happening in your 6th of your job and of your daily routines. So you're really trying to figure out what makes you happy on the day-to-day, what you enjoy, how you can have a job or a set of daily routines that you really do like, that really helps you to do some things that are important to you coming in. Also, health is a big thing for Scorpio. 6th house always rules health. So trying to figure out a health issue, maybe going back over an old health thing going on. Okay, I think what you're trying to figure out is where the North Node is, since the North Node's making a trine, and that for you is in your 10th house of your career. Coming in. So you're trying to figure out, what kind of job do I want to put my life in the right direction? What set of daily routines can help give me the reputation that it is that I want? If it's not work related in like the traditional sense of work, it can also just be about what things could you do on the day-to-day that could really make you happy in life, and that could help you to do more of what it is that makes you happy, if it's not about having a job that increases your reputation. Okay, and just trying to figure that out. Again, if this because someone asked me a question about health, I'll mention this. This is also a lot of thinking on maybe some important health decisions that you need to make. Normally when the 10th house as well, that's what comes in, especially with Saturn. I always interpret Saturn to mean decisions a lot of time, especially in squares. And so I think there's some health thing you could be figuring out. Where is your health going? What's important to your health? What do you need to make your health better? Where do you see your life going now that your health is in a certain situation? So I think there could be a lot going on there. With that. I think once you figure out though where you see what's going on with your health, maybe what you want your health to be, or how you can use your job to get you the reputation that you want, then comes at the very end of the Mercury retrograde, the Saturn and Mars square for you in your 3rd house of talk and communication. So then comes more of the talking about it, the communication going on, working with your community, with neighbors as well. What can also happen? And I like to think with the 3rd house making things more familiar in some way. So maybe you're trying to figure out, how can I have the reputation that I want, and what do I need to do on the day-to-day in order to get that reputation in the office? And then once you decide, okay, this is who I want to be known as, this is how I want people to see me at my job, then you can start to be more open to communicate about it, to make it more familiar, to work more with people on it, and to move forward on that. All right. So just trying to give you all a bunch of options for different ways that you can interpret these things for the signs. Then we've got Sagittarius here on your 1st house. Of course, because you're Sagittarius, it's going to put the retrograde right here in Aries in your 5th house of happiness, love, romance, romantic relationships, also passion projects and kids. So something along the lines of rethinking what makes you happy. Did the same things make you happy now that they used to? What about romantic relationships? Do you want the same kind of romantic relationships that you did before? Do you want to date the same kind of people? Do you not? Maybe it's a passion project. You've got an entrepreneurial adventure that you're thinking about. How do you want to do that differently in a way that can really resonate with you? Or kids, how do you want to work with your kids differently? With the trine to the North Node coming in, it keeps taking my pen away from me. This is going to have a lot to do with something new, perhaps, or exciting. You have to figure out how you can be more excited about romantic relationships, how to be more excited about your entrepreneurial ventures, how to work with your kids in new and different ways, in a way that you feel just excites you more. So to me, that's what you're trying to figure out, is how can I be happier, especially after you, Sagittarius, have gone through like such a hard past 2.5 years. I think you're finally trying to figure out, okay, what can I do to finally enjoy life again? Like bring romance into my life, bring love, like work on some passion project, lead my life in the right direction. And I think once you figure out what will excite you, maybe a new relationship comes in, or you start thinking about preparing to get into new romantic relationships, then I think then you get the decisions here about Saturn, with Saturn and Mars making a square, and that's in your 2nd house of money and confidence. So you have to figure out what makes you happy, what you really want, perhaps what new thing you want to do, and then you can start to figure out how to be confident doing this new thing, how to bring more of the stability into your life now that you're trying to move forward to doing something that it is that you enjoy. So maybe there's a new passion project that you've got going on. Now you have to figure out how to finance it in a better way so that you can be happier, or how to be more confident in it. Maybe there's a new situation going on with your children. You have to figure out how to support your children financially. Could also be something that could come in there. Yeah, or to be more comfortable in some kind of romantic relationship. Okay, now we've got Capricorn here, your 1st house. The retrograde for you is going to be in your 4th of home and of family. So lots going on for you emotionally, how you feel about your life, like what's going on with home and family. Are you having the right relationships with home and family? Do you feel comfortable? Are you building your life on the right foundation? I think those are the questions you're trying to work out with the trine over here to the North Node, which is going to be in your 8th house. Definitely some kind of change I see going on at home, change with family. Could also be a big emotional change that maybe you feel as though you have to make, or you have to change the foundation that your life is built on. Okay, and I think you got to figure out what that change is, how you can change your emotions, your family, in order to create more of a life that it is that you really want. Once you figure that out, then it's going to be a lot easier for you here, I like to think, even though the decisions may still be hard, I think it's going to be give you more understanding of what you need to do in order to feel happier about your life, to feel more comfortable, and to build your life on more solid footing. Okay, you just got to figure out what you need emotionally, what you really want to build your life on, and then it'll be easier for your identity to come out and for you to be the person that you want to be and to start to move forward on that. Aquarius, right here. We've got, this is your first house. Mercury retrograde for you is happening in your third. Here's Aries. Talk and communication. So lots of thinking going on and lots of communicating about you, who you are, about how you can communicate more openly about who you are, about what you want. Also third house, you get siblings, maybe working with siblings, but figuring out how you can communicate or work better with a brother or sister, and your community too, how you can create a community that really gets you, or communicate with people around town, with neighbors, work with neighbors in a positive way. I think a lot of it for you has to do right here with the North Node and your 7th house, making a trine over about relationships and partners. You're trying to figure out how to communicate in the right way with people one-on-one. How you want to talk with people in your relationships, what commitments you want to make, and how you can communicate in the right ways with other people about what it is that's going on with you. I think once you figure out how to communicate with your relationships and with other people one-on-one, then I think it's going to help here where Saturn and Mars are going to be conjunct in your 12th house of your insides and your spirituality. It's going to help to put you more at peace on the inside and overcome some things from the past. And I think what Mercury retrograde is trying to help you figure out is how do you need to communicate with people and with the relationships in your life in order to put yourself at peace. And in what way, what commitments do you need to make in order to overcome the past and move forward? And how do you need to adjust your perspective to get on board with that. Then for my Pisces, it's the last one. Thank you all for waiting. I haven't looked at the chat. I'm so sorry. And then this also is like gone 2 hours. Also sorry about that. What we've got, or I guess it's been an hour and a half, right? 6:30 I started this thing. Okay, Pisces, this is your first house. All right, Pisces here. And Mercury retrograde is happening right here in Aries, which rules your 2nd house of money, of confidence, and of your gifts and skills and talents. Also stability. So you're rethinking a lot. How do I want to make money? Or maybe you've started to make money in a different way. And you're trying to decide, is this really for me? Do I really, is this the right way? Do I have my income coming from the right source? How do I feel comfortable with this new income source or something going on there? Maybe also your gifts and skills and talents. Maybe you have been cultivating new or different skills and talents, or using new talents and just trying to figure out how do I use these things in the right way that really get me coming in. Money, talents, confidence, how you can be more confident with who you are. With this making a trine over to the North Node, which for you is going to be in, what is this? Is this your 5th house? Where's Virgo? It's your 6th house of your job and of your daily routine. This hitting you very work related. I feel having a lot to do with your job. You trying to make sure that you've got the right job, that maybe you're confident with your job, with your daily routines, how you can make more money at work, be more confident at work, use more of your gifts and skills and talents at work. I think that's what you're trying to figure out now. How can I make the money I need from this job that I've got, be more confident in it, feel more unique and special and valued for what I'm contributing? If it's not work related in a professional kind of way, since I know I have some of you that have asked me about that recently, 6th house also rules job, your health, and what you do just daily, whatever you do regularly coming in. So maybe you're also trying to figure out how you can finance a health thing. Maybe that's the issue here, money and health. How do I pay for something to make my health better? How do I feel confident with my health, confident in my body? Sometimes you'll get with the 6th house too. Could be something that could come in as well, or maybe how to be more stable, having a set of routines that aren't so crazy all the time could come in. Like if you're a stay-at-home mom, it's like you've got tons of things going on. So how can you be more stable and secure with all of this so that your life, you're not torn in hundreds of different directions? So that could just be another way of interpreting this, just to give you all some options for those of you who don't work, since I've been asked about that. once you decide about your job and how you can be more confident in your job, bring more money from it, use more of your talents in the day-to-day, doing things maybe that you feel more suited to, then it's going to help you make some decisions that you have to make here. And that for you is going to be with where you see your life going and who it is that you're associating with, since it's going to be in your 11th house of your goals, your dreams, and your hopes for the future. So once you've got, once you try to figure out here what you need to be more comfortable, confident on the day-to-day, bring more money in, then I think the decision comes where you have to determine, okay, now how do I see a future for myself now that I'm being more confident on the day-to-day in some way, and who do I associate with? What groups of people can I associate with? How do I socialize more in some way? All right, I don't see the result of this Mercury retrograde being a super outward thing and a physical thing per se for my Pisces, but I do see the result of this Mercury retrograde helping you envision a life that perhaps is better for you, that you feel more comfortable in, to make decisions about where it is you see your life going or what you want to do to see your life in the right place, and also helping you figure out who you need to associate with and how you socialize with these people once you figure out how to be more stable and confident with your job, with all of that, okay? So that's what I've got going on there. I hope that made sense. I'm going to look at the chat now to see if you had any questions and to see if that was helping. All right. Okay. Sorry, I just got a message. Someone was saying maybe that, can you see me in the chat? Are y'all still there? Okay, sorry. Someone was telling me that it may not, or I was getting messages that it may not be working. Sorry, I haven't checked the chat in a little bit. Okay, perfect. I know, I was like, I probably should check in with you like every 4 signs to make sure that everyone's still there and that I'm answering your questions. Yes, someone did say, sorry, I'm just seeing it now. I wasn't looking at the chat, that my chart is for the wrong day. You're right. It was. The reason why I had it for the wrong day, I just didn't change it back. I was doing it in my head just because I know where the aspects are going to be during Mercury retrograde. But I'll make sure that I make the chart right the next time. I was just doing it in my head, but the chart was off. Okay. Okay, sweet. Well, that's all that I have prepared. So I'll just answer a few questions for a little bit. I'll watch the chat and then I will let you all go. Thank you so much for confirming that you see me. Sorry, sometimes my lipstick does something funny. Is it a good time to launch a business, Bree? I would wait. I would wait to launch the business until Mercury goes direct. And I would definitely wait to launch a business until Venus enters Taurus. That's what I'm waiting for my shop. I'm gonna release a new website. I feel like some things in my shop just don't look the way that I want. I think some of the writing on it is like outdated, and so I'm just gonna change that as well. And I personally want to wait till Venus is in Taurus because Venus is at home in Taurus. Taurus is the sign of money and of income. So if you don't wait until Mercury retrograde ends, although I think you should, I would at least wait until Venus enters Taurus. So especially if you want to bring money in from your business. Yes, I am going, Gina, it is going to be available for replay. I've just got to edit it right after this and then upload it to YouTube. And then I think you can get it on Facebook anytime. It should be available. Oh yeah, definitely. Thank you. I know I'm not good at showing you all my planner, but this is my planner that I have, in case you don't know, a 2018 astrological planner. This is it in person, just so you can see it. Isn't it kind of neat? Look at it. I was like, cool, when I got it in person, I can like touch it. And you know, it's like a real thing. coming in. I got to figure out how to get it in like Barnes and Noble and stuff, but this is my first one. So I was like, I don't really know how to do that. And then I think there were some things that like the business needs. I need like an IBSN number, and I don't think I put it on here accurately, but I was like, I'll just figure that out next time. I'm just so happy to be like putting something like this out in it. And so this is the Mercury Retrograde worksheet. If you want, maybe you aren't a fan of worksheets, but I kind of like them because it gives you something tangible to do. But it's just some questions about this Mercury Retrograde for self-reflection as you kind of navigate what this is all about and rethink some things. I also have them for other major alignments. So I did one for Jupiter retrograde too, when Chiron enters Aries, Uranus and Taurus, things like that going on. So there's a bunch of stuff going on, a lot of questions. I also did a little bit of report for each of the new and full moons happening. They come in pairs, so that's why some of the new and full moons are off. There's like this one has like a full moon in April and one in May, but I like to keep them together, because they're pairs. Also a calendar too, if you're interested. My birthday month. You can mark your birthday on it. I'm afraid to mark mine up, so I haven't yet, but you should be able to write on it if you want. And it has all the big alignments. I kept the alignments pretty exact because I was like, this is just going to get a mess if I did all of the alignments when they were within like a 4 or 5 degree orb. So most of the alignments I have here happen on the day of. There's a key in the front too, if you're interested. So that you know how to read the calendar. I wrote a little note for you as well. I signed it. And then there's a cheat sheet. So if you're interested in learning astrology, there's just some like keywords if you need that. Of course, it's not like exhaustive, but it's just to get you started so that you can start to understand things better and so that you can actually read it, because I use a lot of symbols here in this chart, and especially on the calendar. And so I did that so that you can see what it all means and so that you can put the pieces together without me having to tell you. Like, that's the whole point. So you can learn astrology. Okay. Should we wait for a new employment opportunity? I'm definitely a huge fan of just like waiting to make decisions, but if you can't wait, for if this employer can't wait and if you have no other options, then I would take the employment opportunity, Tommy. And yeah, I would. I mean, maybe I have like weird ideas about work, but if it doesn't work out for you, I would just make sure that you could leave it a few weeks later. And I've had that happen. I mean, I have Saturn in the 6th, so I always have weird stuff happen with me when it comes to my job and my daily routines, but I have definitely left a job within months after starting it. Maybe I started that one during Mercury retrograde, but I've definitely done that, and I think that's totally fine. If you need money, I would take it, but just maybe make sure it would be okay if something else were to come up or if you didn't like it. I can't say, Cheryl. What's your rising sign, Cheryl? I don't know. Thank you for asking, Love Star, about my planner. I should maybe try Amazon. Lulu printed it for me. So yeah, you don't have to get the printed version. If you don't want, you can get the PDF version. I have a link to the PDF version in the description box. And if you go to that, this may be a little complicated, but if you go to that description, if you click on that link at the bottom of the listing, it says you can get the PDF version here, or the real version here, the hard copy. And if you just click on that link at the bottom of the listing. Does that make sense? And it'll take you to a website called Lulu, and Lulu is what published my thing, because I don't know how to publish the printed version myself. So they print it for me and ship it right to you. It doesn't come from me. Recommend some great places to learn. I learned astrology a lot just by watching like astrologers and doing my own research, and so people ask me a lot how to learn, and yeah, and that's what I just read, just soak in information that you can. I love Bernadette Brady's books. I think almost anything she writes is amazing. I tell everyone this, I will continue to tell everyone this. Predictive Astrology, The Eagle and the Lark by Bernadette Brady taught me almost everything I know to do my daily horoscopes. So I would, without a doubt, do that. I also just have like tons of like YouTube astrologers that I also love, that I've watched for a really long time too, that are great. So I would definitely recommend them. I've watched the Leo King for years. I think he's inspired me to do my channel, to do what I do. So I always recommend his videos as well, because I wouldn't be here if I wasn't so inspired by how he makes astrology so different. So so I like that. What else? Who else? You know, yeah, just tons of YouTube astrologers. Kelly Rosano, I watch. All the people that you watch, I just follow them for sure. I also recommend joining like tons of Facebook groups online, Astrology Rebels, Astrology Uncensored, anything astrology, and just talk to as many people as you can about their charts. So I think that's great. All right. Let me refresh my page. I don't know if I'm getting any more comments coming in. Yeah. Sweet. Oh, sorry, I'm just looking at some of the comments. Where was it, Cheryl? Your rising sign is a Sagittarius. I think, what did you ask about? Was it spiritual groups? Not finding the best people? If you're a Sagittarius rising, I mean, I don't know your chart, but Sagittarius rising, the full moon would be in your 11th house of your groups, the groups that you're a part of. So maybe some kind of ending in a spiritual, kind of a group or a community, or some kind of completion of sorts that could be coming in. Maybe possibly you may have to start associating with new people, Cheryl, in order to find that. Yeah, I mean, you could, if there's some Uranus stuff, I might also look for Uranus for groups, and maybe you also have something natally happening in your 11th that I can't see, but I would definitely look to 11th to see about all of that. With the full moon happening, though, I definitely see if you're not having the kind of a group of people that resonate with you already, then maybe that not, I don't know if I see a good group of people for you associating with until the new moon in Libra, which would be in September, unless there's something else going on in your chart I can't see. Okay. Yeah, so Cheryl, right, I agree with Sagittarius being the 9th and 5th. It's definitely figuring out what makes you happy, maybe doing something new, and maybe once you do the new thing that you enjoy, maybe the people will come later this year once you start doing something else you like better. Okay, perfect. Okay. I guess I will sign off so that I don't keep you too long. I really hope that this Mercury retrograde didn't get my brain too fuzzy and that you were able to pick something up from it that helped. And otherwise, I'll talk to you all later. I hope you all have a good night. Yeah, and I will post this on YouTube for you all to see there. Have a good Mercury retrograde. Thank you so much. I'm glad you all watch my videos. It means so much to me. I never in like a million years thought I would get so many people that would watch my videos. But it really does make me so happy to see all of your sweet comments all the time. I really appreciate it. So thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you all later. Have a good night. Bye.